Hello all, Rick here with a cultural index on a long-lived species of Star Trek and a favourite of mine, the El-Aurians. Much of what we know of the species comes from Guinan, the former barkeep of the Enterprise D who is always ready to lend an ear or offer advice. Alongside the canonical information I will be drawing on Apocrypha where it does not conflict, to flesh out an image of them and their history. There are three main things you need to know about the El-Aurians. The first is that they are very long-lived, especially for a humanoid species. The second is that they are dispersed all through the quadrants and possibly the galaxy due to the loss of their homeworld to the Borg. And the final thing is that they are often referred to as a race of listeners, a people who collate and collect tales and experiences. But let's start with their home planet, El-Auria. As with many aliens in Star Trek, the species shares its name with its system and planet, or in this case its primary star. Unimaginative, I know, but perhaps they call it something different in their native tongue and the Federation only knows it as El-Auria. Its location is somewhat vague, but it's likely either deep in the Beta Quadrants or even the Light Delta, considering the Borg came across them around the mid to late 23rd century. We know that by the time of TNG 2364, the Borg were beginning to make their way into the neutral zone between Romulan and Federation space, which means that they were just expanding into that territory. El-Auria was assimilated 100 years prior to this, when the Borg would have been still encroaching. So based on Borg encounters, it's probably over here somewhere. El-Auria used to be an M-class planet, and the focal hub of their society. Cities on the planet included Lauris, Sadora, as well as smaller settlements like Talal on the coast. The civilization has been mentioned to be tens of thousands of years old, and considering their lifestyle, they must have been spacefaring for a very long time. However, for such an ancient civilization to fall to the Borg, we can infer that their level of technology was not advanced enough to save them from the cybernetic menace. The loss of their homeworld between 2265 and 93 left refugees fleeing the now Borg territory, where they continued to be displaced even until 2293, and they continued to be without a home of their own into the 25th century. Biologically, the El-Aurians appear to be very humanoid, and share much in common with humans, from their variety of skin tones to eye colour and hair, build and so on. In fact, an El-Aurian easily passes for a human, or Betazoid or Rysian, and for many this is used as a benefit as it allows them to better pass among others unnoticed. The biggest difference between El-Aurians and other species, however, is their lifespan, where an individual can easily reach over 500 years old and still be considered middle-aged. The exact length has not been determined on screen, but in Apocrypha there are still healthy and active El-Aurians at around 700, not to mention Guinan's father. They seem to grow out of childhood at a comparable rate to humans, but are still considered young at around 100 years old. Additionally, an El-Aurian is able to hold back signs of aging from visibly showing and can consciously allow themselves to appear older if they wished it. The origin of this lifespan is unknown but presumed evolutionary, although I like to think that perhaps there is a natural effect at play, akin to the Baku home planet, but just within the individual. Additionally, the El-Aurians are very in tune with the fabric of the universe. Yeah. So, as a species, they can feel when alterations to time have been made. They refer to this as afkelt, and it manifests as a sense of unease or pervasive wrongness to things. This increases when they come into proximity to an aberration or remembrance of another time, and it can even manifest as nausea. Their level of awareness of the universe ties in very well with the theme of being listeners, as apparently they even have their ear to the fabric of reality itself, in a way. Culturally, the El-Aurians are a dispersed crowd, but from what we have seen, it seems that this was always their way even before the loss of El-Auria. As such a long-lived species, one of their driving factors in life was to explore other cultures, societies, and learn from them. They mingled, talked, and, more importantly, listened, collating tales and news from far-flung societies, peoples, and events. Due to their exceptional lifespan, it was not uncommon for an El-Aurian to embed themselves into another culture for decades, perhaps even centuries, where they could passively observe and learn, growing in experience and understanding. This was all so that when they returned to their home they could share these tales among their family and fellows, enriching the species as a whole. They seldom involved themselves in the affairs of others, content to accumulate stories, but with the wealth of information that they inevitably accumulated over the centuries of travel, they naturally became repositories of sage counsel and advice. This lends them a certain wisdom that is often sought out, and therefore they make excellent counsellors, diplomats, confidants, and bartenders. In addition to this, they may be mildly empathic and have the ability to read and coax emotion out of others, although this could be from their years of experience at conversing, rather than any active ability like a betazoid. I thought I'd bring it up as it's noted enough to be a frequent observation when talking to them, that it's easy to trust and open up to an El-Aurian. This has led some of them to employ their aptitude for talk, information gathering, and years of experience towards more nefarious activities, such as con artists. On top of this, their lifespan means that they can implement long-term plans and see them to completion over the decades if they are patient enough, and El-Aurians are patient. Technologically, the El-Aurians might actually be behind the curve when it comes to other species. The fact that they were so sporadic for so long suggests that they did not have much in the way of colony worlds. In fact, outside of their home planet, they don't appear to have many resources at all, as even the 2 refugee ships encountered in 2293 were under El-Aurian registration, but the Wharfin-class vessel is a common civilian transport vessel that they simply acquired and owned. They weren't El-Aurian construction. We do see Toli and Soren use a disruptor of unique design, which was named an El-Aurian disruptor, but I believe this was designed and constructed by the scientist himself. So it literally is of El-Aurian design, I guess? But probably atypical. We don't get to see too much of the El-Aurian language, aside from a couple of proper nouns and some names, and their fashion design was sported by Guinan, however that is a sample size of 1, although flowing robes and large hats seem common, judging by the passengers of the SS Lacour. Most of their gear, tech and lifestyle would be an amalgamation of the other cultures which they now have surrounded themselves with. So, as an observation, and a speculative one at that, I think that this is simply all down to how their society operates. With their long lives, they don't really need to get anywhere very fast, so better warp speeds might not have been a priority at the end of the day, and if they have to barter passage aboard another vessel, then that allows them time to mingle among others and learn of them. Why bother developing your own ships and getting places in a hurry when you find enjoyment and peace in the journey? The fact that they spend a great deal of their lives outside of childhood wandering means that they had little use for colonies either, aside from their one home where they could congregate to meet. Overall, the El-Aurian people have had a great horror befall them, with the loss of their planet to the Borg, which has left them spread apart. While their cultural pursuit of stories and new experiences has prepared them for such a lifestyle, they have been deprived of a point to return to, which in time could severely diminish their numbers. However, as such a long-lived species, they generally move through their lives at a slower pace, often parenting multiple children over the centuries, so it remains to be seen if the loss of El-Auria would actually spell the end for them, but I think not. They seem wise enough and incredibly capable of adapting to any situation and persevering. Thanks for watching this video on the El-Aurians of Star Trek. I'm surprised at how little extra we learn of them, even in the Apocrypha, so there was a fair bit of assumption in this index. If there is another target species you'd like me to cover, drop a request below, and in the meantime, I'll post the votes for the next choice over on the Community tab. Thanks again for listening. I've been Rick, and goodbye.